We think we know our own backyard. We walk through Utah's red rock canyons, marvel at the towering arches, and believe we understand the stories written in stone. But scattered across this ancient landscape are mysteries that challenge everything we think we know about the past. Structures that defy explanation, artifacts that predate known civilizations, entire peoples who vanished without a trace, leaving behind only questions carved in rock. These aren't legends or folklore. These are real archaeological discoveries that have puzzled scientists for decades. Each one represents a piece of Utah's hidden history that refuses to fit into our neat timelines and tidy explanations. From ceremonial sites that align with celestial events to petroglyphs that seem to tell impossible stories, Utah holds secrets that science still can't unlock. What you're about to discover will change how you see this landscape forever. Because sometimes the most profound mysteries aren't hidden in distant lands or buried beneath ocean floors. Sometimes they're right here, carved into the very rocks we pass by every day, waiting for someone to ask the right questions. So grab a snack, get comfortable, and prepare to have your worldview challenged, because what you're about to discover will make you wonder, just how much of our ancient history have we gotten completely wrong? But here's the thing. While most people will scroll past content like this without a second thought, you're still here. That tells me you're one of the few who actually care about uncovering the truth. If you want to stay ahead of the crowd and never miss discoveries that could rewrite history, hit that subscribe button now, because what I'm about to show you next will make you question everything. Deep in the heart of Canyonlands National Park, perched on a narrow cliff ledge hundreds of feet above the canyon floor, sits one of Utah's most enigmatic structures. Hikers who make the treacherous journey to reach it find themselves standing before a perfect circle of carefully placed stones, each one positioned with deliberate precision. The locals call it False Kiva, but that name itself reveals the first mystery. Because this isn't actually a kiva at all. Traditional kivas are underground ceremonial chambers built by ancestral Puebloan peoples, sacred spaces where communities gathered for rituals and spiritual practices. But this stone circle sits exposed on a cliff face, open to the sky and elements. It consists of several dozen sandstone blocks arranged in a nearly perfect ring, each stone fitted against the next with remarkable care. The structure measures approximately 20 feet in diameter, and every block shows signs of intentional placement rather than natural formation. The location itself defies logic. Getting to False Kiva requires navigating treacherous rock ledges and exposed cliff faces. There's no easy access, no natural pathway that would make regular visits practical for a community. Yet someone went to extraordinary lengths to transport these stones to this precarious perch and arrange them in this perfect formation. The nearest source for some of these stones lies miles away, meaning whoever built this structure carried heavy blocks across difficult terrain for reasons we still don't understand. Archaeological surveys have found no evidence of permanent settlements nearby, no pottery shards, no tool fragments, and no signs that people lived in the immediate area. This isolation makes the structure even more puzzling because traditional ceremonial sites usually connect to larger community complexes. But False Kiva stands alone, as if it served a purpose that required complete separation from daily life. Some researchers suggest it might have been an astronomical observation site. The circular arrangement could have been designed to track celestial movements, with specific stones marking important solar or lunar positions throughout the year. The elevated position would certainly provide clear views of the horizon, making it ideal for watching sunrise and sunset positions during different seasons. But extensive astronomical analysis has failed to reveal any definitive alignments that would confirm this theory. Others propose it might have been a vision quest site, a place where individuals came for spiritual experiences that required isolation and exposure to the elements. The difficult access and exposed location would certainly create the kind of challenging environment associated with such practices. The circular arrangement might have provided a sacred boundary, a defined space for rituals that needed to be separate from the everyday world. But here's where the mystery deepens. Carbon dating of organic materials found within the structure suggests it's much older than initially thought. potentially predating known ancestral Puebloan occupation of the area by several centuries. This raises uncomfortable questions about who built it and why. If it wasn't constructed by known indigenous peoples of the region, then who possessed the knowledge and motivation to create such a precisely engineered ceremonial space? The construction itself presents additional puzzles. Some of the stones show evidence of careful shaping, with surfaces that fit together too perfectly to be accidental. This level of precision suggests builders with advanced understanding of geometry and engineering, yet the techniques used don't match known construction methods from the period. It's as if the builders possessed knowledge that was somehow lost to later generations. Weather patterns around False Kiva also behave strangely. Visitors report sudden changes in wind direction when approaching the structure, and some describe an unusual acoustic quality to the space. Sounds seem to carry differently within the stone circle, creating echoes and resonances that don't occur in the surrounding area. These phenomena might be purely natural, results of the unique geography and elevation, but they add to the sense that this place possesses qualities that go beyond simple stone arrangement. Modern attempts to understand False Kiva have raised more questions than they've answered. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have detected anomalies beneath the structure, suggesting buried features that might extend deep into the rock ledge itself. But the location makes excavation virtually impossible, leaving these underground mysteries unexplored. Whatever secrets lie beneath False Kiva remain locked in stone. The structure continues to attract visitors who report profound experiences within the stone circle. Some describe feelings of deep peace and connection to ancient wisdom. Others report strange dreams or visions after spending time at the site. While these accounts might be dismissed as psychological responses to the dramatic setting, their consistency across different visitors suggests something more than simple suggestion might be at work. As we stand before False Kiva today, we're confronted with a structure that challenges our understanding of ancient Utah peoples and their capabilities. This isn't just a pile of stones arranged by chance. It's a deliberately constructed site that required significant planning, effort, and knowledge to create. Yet its purpose, its builders, and its true age remain mysteries that science hasn't solved. But if a single stone circle can hold this many secrets, what happens when entire civilizations disappear without explanation? Because False Kiva is just the beginning of Utah's ancient mysteries. Across the red rock landscape of southwestern Utah, magnificent structures rise from cliff faces like ancient skyscrapers frozen in time. These aren't random ruins or abandoned camps. They're architectural marvels that represent one of North America's most advanced prehistoric civilizations. The ancestral Puebloans, often called the Anasazi, built cities in the sky that housed thousands of people and stood as monuments to human ingenuity. Then, around 1300 AD, they simply disappeared. The scope of this vanishing is staggering. We're not talking about a small tribe or isolated community. The ancestral Puebloans occupied vast territories across Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico for over 1,000 years. They developed advanced agricultural systems, complex social structures, and architectural techniques that still impress modern engineers. Their population numbered in the hundreds of thousands, spread across countless settlements that range from small farming villages to massive urban centers. In Utah, their presence is unmistakable. Canyon walls throughout the state bear witness to their architectural genius. Multi-story dwellings carved directly into cliff faces, granaries that could store years' worth of food, and ceremonial kivas that demonstrate an advanced understanding of acoustics and astronomy. These weren't primitive shelters. They were engineered structures designed to last for generations, built by people who clearly intended to stay. The complexity of their society becomes apparent when you examine their settlements closely. They developed advanced water management systems, channeling seasonal rainfall and snowmelt through elaborate networks of canals, reservoirs, and check dams. Their agricultural terraces transformed steep canyon slopes into productive farmland. They created trade networks that stretched across hundreds of miles, exchanging goods and ideas with distant communities. Their craftsmanship reached levels that seem almost impossible without modern tools. Pottery, with intricate geometric designs that required mathematical precision to create, textiles woven from cotton that they grew in challenging desert conditions, tools crafted from stone with edges sharp enough to rival modern implements. These weren't the products of a struggling survival culture. This was a thriving civilization at the height of its development, but around 1300 AD, something happened that changed everything. Archaeological evidence shows that major population centers across the region were abandoned within a relatively short period, not gradually over generations, but rapidly, as if entire communities simply decided to leave. The timing is remarkably consistent across different areas, suggesting whatever caused the exodus affected the entire civilization simultaneously. The abandonment wasn't chaotic or violent. There's little evidence of warfare or conflict that might explain sudden population movements. Instead, the sites appear to have been deliberately evacuated. Valuable items were taken, but many everyday objects were left behind, as if people expected to return but never did. Some structures show evidence of intentional sealing, with doors and windows blocked with stone, as if to preserve the spaces for future use. Traditional explanations focus on environmental factors. The late 1200s brought severe droughts that lasted for decades, making agriculture difficult and forcing competition for limited resources. Tree ring data confirms that rainfall patterns changed dramatically during this period, creating conditions that would have stressed even the most advanced farming systems. But drought alone doesn't explain the completeness of the abandonment or why no one ever returned when conditions improved. Social conflict theories suggest that resource stress led to warfare between communities, ultimately making the region uninhabitable. Archaeological evidence does show increased construction of defensive structures during the final decades of occupation, indicating growing concern about security. But the absence of widespread destruction or evidence of major battles makes pure conflict explanations incomplete. Population pressure theories propose that centuries of successful farming and population growth eventually exceeded the environment's carrying capacity. As communities grew larger and more complex, they required increasingly advanced management systems. Perhaps the social structures that had sustained growth for centuries finally broke down under their own complexity. But here's what none of these theories adequately address. Where did they go? A population numbering in the hundreds of thousands doesn't simply vanish without leaving traces elsewhere. Yet despite extensive archaeological research throughout the Southwest and beyond, no clear evidence has emerged showing where all these people relocated. Some researchers point to similarities between late ancestral Puebloan culture and later Hopi, Zuni, and Rio Grande Pueblo peoples, suggesting the population dispersed and integrated into existing communities. While genetic and cultural evidence support some connection, the scale doesn't match. The historical Pueblo populations couldn't account for the enormous numbers that disappeared from the Four Corners region. Migration theories propose that the entire population moved to areas that haven't been thoroughly investigated, or where evidence has been obscured by later occupation. Parts of Mexico, unexplored regions of the Southwest, and even areas as far away as Central America have been suggested as possible destinations. But such massive population movements should leave archaeological signatures that haven't been found. The most puzzling aspect of the Anasazi disappearance is how complete it was. These weren't nomadic peoples who might have simply moved on to better territory. They were deeply rooted in specific landscapes with sacred sites, ancestral burial grounds, and complex relationships to particular places that had developed over centuries. For such people to abandon everything suggests circumstances we may not fully understand. Recent archaeological discoveries have added new dimensions to the mystery. Some sites show evidence of occupation continuing well past 1300 AD, indicating the abandonment wasn't simultaneous everywhere. Other locations reveal construction projects that were apparently abandoned mid-work, as if builders simply stopped what they were doing and left. These details suggest a more complex process than simple environmental stress. Advanced analysis of preserved plant and animal remains from the period reveals interesting patterns. Some species that were important food sources show signs of overuse, but others were underutilized, suggesting the problem wasn't simply resource depletion. Climate data indicate that while droughts occurred, they weren't unprecedented. Similar conditions in earlier centuries had been successfully weathered. The Anasazi built their civilization to last. Their architecture was designed for permanence, their agricultural systems for sustainability, and their social structures for long-term stability. Yet something happened that convinced entire populations to abandon everything they had built and disappear into history. The question isn't just where they went, but what could have been powerful enough to drive such a successful civilization away from everything they knew. Standing in their empty cities today, we're confronted with one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. An advanced people who dominated the Southwest for over a millennium simply vanished, leaving behind only questions carved in stone. But their disappearance wasn't the only mysterious vanishing in Utah's ancient past. While the Anasazi were building their cliff cities in Utah's southern deserts, another remarkable civilization flourished across the northern and central portions of the state. The Fremont people left behind some of the most extraordinary rock art ever created in North America, including massive petroglyph panels that stretch across canyon walls like ancient newspapers, filled with stories we can't quite read. Then, like their southern neighbors, they too disappeared around 1300 AD, leaving behind only their mysterious images and more questions than answers. The Fremont culture represented a completely different approach to life in the harsh Utah landscape. While the Anasazi concentrated populations in large settlements and developed intensive agriculture, the Fremont remained more mobile, adapting to diverse environments from desert valleys to high mountain plateaus. They occupied an enormous territory that stretched across most of Utah and into parts of Colorado, Idaho, and Nevada, making them one of the most geographically widespread cultures of prehistoric North America. What makes the Fremont people truly remarkable isn't their settlements or pottery, though both show considerable sophistication. It's their rock art. Across Utah, massive petroglyph panels bear witness to their artistic vision and spiritual beliefs. These aren't simple drawings scratched into stone. They're complex compositions that required careful planning, advanced techniques, and a deep understanding of the rock surfaces they were working with. The most impressive Fremont petroglyph panels contain hundreds of individual images arranged in seemingly deliberate patterns. Human figures with elaborate headdresses and ornate clothing stand alongside animals, both realistic and fantastical. Geometric patterns create borders and backgrounds that suggest underlying organizational principles we don't fully understand. Some figures appear to be engaged in ceremonies or rituals, while others seem to document hunting scenes or astronomical events. The technical skill required to create these images challenges assumptions about prehistoric artistic capabilities. Many petroglyphs were created using advanced pecking techniques that required specialized tools and considerable expertise. The artists understood how to work with different types of rock, adapting their methods to achieve specific effects. Some images show evidence of multiple episodes of creation, with later artists adding to or modifying earlier work in ways that suggest continuity of artistic tradition across generations. But it's not just the technical proficiency that impresses modern researchers. It's the consistency of style and symbolism across vast distances and long periods of time. Fremont rock art from sites hundreds of miles apart shares common elements and motifs, indicating a unified cultural tradition that somehow maintained coherence across their enormous territory. This cultural unity is particularly puzzling given the Fremont's mobile lifestyle and the geographical barriers that separated different groups. The most enigmatic aspects of Fremont rock art are the figures themselves. Many depict humans with features that seem almost otherworldly: enormous eyes, elaborate headdresses, and clothing that appears to incorporate elements not found in the natural environment. Some figures are shown with what appear to be wings or other appendages that don't correspond to known human anatomy. These stylistic choices may represent spiritual or ceremonial transformation, but their consistency across different sites suggests that they held a specific meaning within Fremont culture. Animal depictions in Fremont art also raise questions. While many clearly represent local species like deer, bighorn sheep, and various birds, Others don't correspond to any known animals from the region. Some appear to combine features from different species, creating composite creatures that might represent spiritual entities or mythological beings. A few depictions show animals that resemble species not known to have existed in Utah during the Fremont period, raising questions about the artist's knowledge of the natural world. The geographical distribution of Fremont sites presents its own mysteries. Their rock art appears in locations that range from easily accessible valley floors to remote cliff faces that required dangerous climbing to reach. Some of the most elaborate panels are found in places where few people would ever see them, suggesting purposes beyond simple communication or decoration. The effort required to create art in such locations implies these sites held special significance that justify considerable risk and effort. Dating Fremont rock art presents significant challenges because direct dating of petroglyphs is extremely difficult. Researchers rely on associated artifacts, radiocarbon dating of nearby organic materials, and comparison with other dated sites to estimate ages. This indirect approach has revealed that Fremont artistic traditions spanned over 1,000 years, from approximately 300 AD to 1300 AD, with some regional variations in timing and style. The sudden end of the Fremont culture around 1300 AD coincides remarkably with the Anasazi abandonment, suggesting these separate civilizations faced similar challenges at the same time. But the Fremont disappearance is even more complete than that of their southern neighbors. While we can trace some Anasazi traditions into later Pueblo cultures, the Fremont seem to have vanished without clear descendants. Environmental factors certainly played a role in the disappearance. The same droughts that stressed Anasazi agriculture would have affected Fremont's subsistence strategies, possibly forcing them to abandon traditional territories. But the Fremont's mobile lifestyle should have made them more adaptable to environmental change, not less. Their ability to exploit diverse environments and shift locations according to seasonal availability had sustained them for a millennium. Recent archaeological research has revealed that the Fremont culture was more complex than previously thought. Some sites show evidence of intensive agriculture similar to Anasazi practices, while others indicate continued reliance on hunting and gathering. This diversity of subsistence strategies should have provided resilience against environmental stress, making their complete disappearance even more puzzling. The rock art they left behind continues to reveal new secrets as research techniques advance. Digital analysis has identified patterns and relationships between images that weren't apparent to earlier researchers. Some panels appear to contain astronomical information, with figures and symbols arranged to track seasonal changes or celestial events. Others might represent maps or territorial markers that helped mobile groups navigate and claim resources across their vast territory. But perhaps the most intriguing discoveries involve the apparent planning and organization evident in major petroglyph panels. Computer analysis has revealed underlying geometric structures that suggest the overall compositions were carefully designed before creation began. This level of planning implies that major rock art sites weren't created casually over time, but were conceived as unified works that required coordination between multiple artists and possibly extended communities. The Fremont people possessed knowledge and capabilities that we're only beginning to understand. Their rock art represents one of North America's greatest artistic achievements, a cultural tradition that maintained consistency and sophistication across enormous spans of time and space. Yet they vanished as completely as if they had never existed, leaving behind only their mysterious images and questions about what happened to the people who created them. Their disappearance marks another missing chapter in Utah's ancient history, another civilization that thrived for centuries before vanishing without adequate explanation. But while the Fremont and Anasazi left behind empty settlements and mysterious art, other Utah sites preserve even more tangible evidence of ancient peoples whose stories remain untold. Along the famous Delicate Arch Trail in Utah's most visited national park, thousands of hikers pass by a small panel of rock art without realizing they're walking past one of the most intriguing archaeological puzzles in the Southwest. The Wolf Ranch petroglyphs, created by Ute peoples who inhabited this landscape for centuries, contain images that challenge our understanding of Native American history and raise questions about knowledge that may have been lost to time. The petroglyphs themselves appear deceptively simple at first glance. A collection of human figures, animals, and geometric shapes pecked into the dark desert varnish that coats the sandstone cliff face. The panel measures roughly 10 feet wide by 6 feet tall, modest in size compared to the massive rock art galleries found elsewhere in Utah. But size doesn't indicate significance, and these images hold secrets that have puzzled researchers for decades. The most striking figures on the panel are clearly human, depicted with the distinctive style characteristic of Ute rock art from the historic period. These figures show European influence in their clothing and posture, indicating they were created after contact with Spanish explorers and American settlers. Some appear to be wearing hats or other garments that weren't part of traditional Ute clothing, providing clear evidence of cultural exchange and adaptation during the colonial period. But it's the animals depicted alongside these human figures that create the real mystery. The panel includes clear representations of horses, which makes perfect historical sense since the Ute became skilled horsemen after horses were reintroduced to North America by Spanish colonists. However, other animal figures don't fit so neatly into known historical timelines or geographical distributions. One figure appears to represent a large dog or wolf-like creature with features that don't match any species known to have inhabited the region during the Ute period. The proportions and stance suggest an animal much larger than the coyotes or wolves that lived in the area, with characteristics that seem almost prehistoric. Some researchers have speculated it might represent a bear, but the body shape and limb proportions don't align with typical bear depictions in Ute art. Even more puzzling are geometric patterns that appear throughout the panel. While geometric designs are common in Native American rock art, these particular patterns don't match known Ute symbolic traditions. They consist of complex interlocking shapes and repeated motifs that suggest mathematical relationships or possibly astronomical significance. The precision required to create these patterns indicates considerable planning and specialized knowledge. The location of the petroglyphs adds another layer of mystery. They're positioned on a cliff face that would have been difficult to access and work on, requiring whoever created them to bring ladders or construct scaffolding to reach the surface. This suggests the site held special significance that justified the extra effort required to create art in such a challenging location. Archaeological investigation of the area around the petroglyphs has revealed evidence of repeated occupation over long periods. The Wolf Ranch itself represents a late 19th century settlement, but artifacts from the immediate vicinity indicate Native American use of the area stretching back thousands of years. This long history of occupation raises questions about whether the visible petroglyphs represent the most recent layer of a much deeper artistic tradition. Advanced photographic analysis has revealed faded images that aren't immediately visible to casual observers. These underlying figures appear to be older than the clearly visible petroglyphs, suggesting the rock face was used for artistic expression over multiple time periods. Some of these earlier images show stylistic characteristics that don't match known Ute artistic traditions, indicating they might have been created by earlier peoples who occupied the area. The Ute people themselves have oral traditions about the petroglyphs, but these stories add complexity rather than clarity to their interpretation. Some tribal accounts suggest the images record historical events or important spiritual experiences, while others indicate they serve as territorial markers or navigation aids for travelers crossing the desert landscape. However, certain elements of the rock art don't correspond to any known Ute traditions or historical accounts. Recent ethnographic research with Ute elders has revealed that some of the symbols on the panel have meanings that weren't previously documented by anthropologists. This suggests that knowledge about the petroglyphs has been preserved within Ute communities, but wasn't shared with outside researchers until recently. However, even tribal knowledge doesn't explain all aspects of the rock art, particularly the more unusual animal figures and geometric patterns. Digital enhancement techniques have revealed details in the petroglyphs that weren't apparent using traditional analysis methods. Some figures appear to have been modified or added to over time, creating layered compositions that reflect changing artistic traditions or evolving symbolic meanings. These modifications might represent multiple generations of artists working on the same rock face, each adding their own contributions to an ongoing artistic dialogue. The timing of the petroglyphs' creation remains partially mysterious despite their apparent historical period characteristics. While the European influence in clothing and horse depictions clearly places some images in the post-contact era, other elements of the panel might be much older. The underlying figures revealed through digital analysis could date to periods when different people occupied the region. Environmental factors have also played a role in preserving and revealing different aspects of the petroglyphs. Desert varnish forms slowly over centuries, and variations in varnish darkness can indicate the relative ages of different figures. However, local environmental conditions can affect varnish formation in unpredictable ways, making age determination based on surface characteristics unreliable. The broader context of Ute rock art across Utah and the Great Basin provides additional perspectives on the arches' petroglyphs. Similar figures and motifs appear at other sites, but there are also unique elements that don't have clear parallels elsewhere. This combination of common and unique features suggests the arches panel represents both participation in wider Ute artistic traditions and expression of local or individual creativity. Modern Ute tribal members continue to visit the petroglyphs and consider them important cultural resources. However, different individuals and families sometimes provide varying interpretations of specific images, indicating that knowledge about the rock art isn't uniform throughout the community. This diversity of interpretation might reflect the complex history of the panel itself, with different images holding different meanings for different people. The Wolf Ranch petroglyphs represent an intersection of known history and lingering mystery. While we can identify European influence and Ute artistic traditions in many of the images, other elements resist easy explanation. They remind us that even relatively recent rock art can contain knowledge and meanings that have been lost or transformed over time. But these historic mysteries pale in comparison to discoveries that push the boundaries of human presence in Utah back thousands of years before any known civilizations. In the desolate salt flats west of the Great Salt Lake, where the landscape looks more like an alien planet than Earth, lies one of Utah's most extraordinary archaeological discoveries. Hidden within a small cave in the Promontory Mountains, researchers found evidence of human presence that predates known civilizations by thousands of years. But this wasn't just stone tools or pottery fragments. This was something far more intimate and mysterious. Perfectly preserved moccasins that had walked Utah's ancient landscapes over 10,000 years ago. The discovery came during systematic archaeological surveys of Great Basin caves in the mid-20th century. Promontory Cave appeared unremarkable from the outside, just another small opening in the limestone cliffs that dot the mountain range. But when researchers began careful excavation of the cave floor, they uncovered one of North America's most significant archaeological treasure troves. The cave's dry environment had created perfect conditions for preserving organic materials that would have decayed long ago in most other locations. Layer by layer, the excavation revealed a detailed record of human occupation spanning thousands of years. But it was the deepest, oldest layers that contained the most astonishing discoveries. The moccasins themselves represent extraordinary preservation of ancient craftsmanship. Made from carefully prepared hide and sewn with plant fiber cordage, they show an advanced understanding of leatherworking and textile production. The construction techniques indicate considerable skill and knowledge about creating durable, functional footwear suited to harsh desert conditions. But what makes these moccasins truly remarkable isn't just their age or preservation, it's what they reveal about the people who made them. The size variations indicate they were crafted for different individuals, suggesting family groups or small communities rather than solitary travelers. The wear patterns show they were used for extended periods, indicating settled occupation rather than brief visits. Analysis of the materials used in construction provides clues about the environment these ancient people inhabited. The leather appears to come from large mammals that were native to the region during the early Holocene period, species that are now extinct or no longer found in Utah. The plant fibers used for sewing represent species that still grow in the area, but the specific preparation techniques suggest knowledge of plant processing that has been lost to time. The most intriguing aspect of the moccasins is their advanced construction. These aren't crude survival gear hastily assembled from available materials. They represent refined footwear technology that required considerable knowledge and skill to produce. The stitching patterns, sole construction, and upper design all indicate an advanced understanding of footwear engineering. Radiocarbon dating of organic materials associated with the moccasins has consistently returned ages exceeding 10,000 years, placing them firmly in the Paleo-Indian period when North America was still emerging from the last ice age. This makes them among the oldest examples of complex textile production in North America, predating most known evidence of such advanced craftwork by thousands of years. The cave contained other artifacts from the same time period that add to the mystery of these ancient occupants. Basketry fragments show equally advanced weaving techniques with complex patterns that required mathematical understanding of geometric relationships. Cordage made from various plant fibers demonstrates detailed knowledge of different species and their properties for specific applications. Tool assemblages from the deepest layers of the cave don't match typical Paleo-Indian technologies found elsewhere in North America. While most Paleo-Indian sites are characterized by distinctive projectile points designed for hunting large game, the Promontory Cave tools suggest a different adaptation, focused on processing plant materials and small game. This technological divergence raises questions about the cultural identity of the cave's ancient occupants. Dietary evidence preserved in the cave provides insights into the subsistence strategies of these ancient people. Plant remains indicate they harvested a wide variety of seeds, nuts, and other plant foods using techniques that maximized nutritional value and preservation. Animal bones suggest they hunted diverse species, ranging from small mammals to large ungulates, demonstrating flexible hunting strategies. The seasonal patterns evident in the cave deposits suggest these people occupied the site repeatedly over long periods, possibly using it as a base camp for seasonal resource exploitation. The accumulation of organic materials and artifacts indicates intensive use rather than occasional visits, suggesting the cave played an important role in their annual subsistence cycle. But perhaps the most puzzling aspect of the Promontory Cave discoveries is how advanced the technology appears relative to other known Paleo-Indian cultures. The textile production, basketry, and tool technologies suggest knowledge and skills that archaeologists typically associate with much later time periods. This technological sophistication challenges conventional understanding of cultural development in ancient North America. Recent reanalysis of the cave materials using advanced techniques has revealed additional mysteries. DNA analysis of hair and other organic materials has detected genetic signatures that don't clearly align with known ancient populations of the region. While the sample sizes are small and the preservation conditions create analytical challenges, the initial results suggest these people might have represented a distinct population with unclear relationships to later Native American groups. Microscopic analysis of the moccasin construction has revealed manufacturing techniques that weren't previously recognized. The leather preparation involved complex tanning processes using plant materials that aren't commonly found near the cave site, suggesting extensive knowledge of regional plant resources or trade relationships with distant groups. The cave's position in the landscape adds another dimension to the mystery. Located in what is now an extremely arid country, the site would have required intimate knowledge of water sources and seasonal resource availability to support repeated occupation. This suggests the ancient inhabitants possessed a detailed understanding of environmental patterns that allowed them to thrive in challenging conditions. Modern attempts to recreate the moccasin construction techniques have proven surprisingly difficult. Contemporary craftspeople familiar with traditional leatherworking methods have struggled to replicate the precise stitching patterns and sole attachment methods used by the ancient manufacturers. This difficulty suggests the original makers possessed specialized knowledge that has been lost. The broader implications of the Promontory Cave discoveries extend far beyond Utah archaeology. The evidence for advanced textile production and advanced material culture at such an early date challenges models of cultural development throughout North America. If such technologies existed 10,000 years ago in the Great Basin, what other capabilities might ancient peoples have possessed that haven't been preserved in the archaeological record? Standing in Promontory Cave today, holding these ancient moccasins, we're connected across millennia to people whose daily lives involved technological sophistication we're only beginning to understand. They walked these same desert landscapes, faced the same environmental challenges, and developed solutions that sustained them for thousands of years. Yet their identities, their cultural traditions, and their ultimate fate remain mysteries locked in time. But these ancient footsteps represent just one layer of Utah's archaeological puzzles. Across the state, other sites preserve evidence of human creativity and knowledge that spans thousands of years. In the heart of southeastern Utah, where red rock canyons stretch toward infinite horizons and silence carries the weight of centuries, stands what might be North America's most impressive prehistoric art gallery. Newspaper Rock, as early settlers named it, presents visitors with a massive sandstone cliff face covered in over 650 individual petroglyphs created across thousands of years. But this isn't just ancient graffiti or random artistic expression. It's something far more intriguing, a complex record of human thought and experience that reads like a newspaper from the distant past, filled with stories we're still learning to decode. The rock face itself rises nearly 200 feet above the canyon floor, a massive vertical canvas of dark desert varnish that provided the perfect surface for ancient artists. The petroglyphs cover approximately 100 square feet of this cliff face, concentrated in areas that were accessible to the artists but positioned for maximum visibility to anyone passing through the canyon. The sheer density of images creates an overwhelming visual experience that suggests this site held extraordinary significance for the people who created it. Archaeological evidence indicates that Newspaper Rock was used as an artistic site for over 2,000 years, with the earliest images possibly dating back to the Archaic period around 2,000 years ago, and the most recent was created by Ute peoples within the last few centuries. This remarkable span of continuous use makes it one of the longest utilized rock art sites in North America, a place where generation after generation added their voices to an ongoing cultural conversation. The diversity of images on Newspaper Rock defies simple categorization. Human figures appear in dozens of different styles and poses, some realistic, others highly stylized or abstract. Animal depictions range from clearly identifiable species like bighorn sheep, deer and birds to mysterious creatures that don't correspond to any known animals. Geometric patterns create complex designs that suggest mathematical relationships or symbolic meanings that remain undeciphered. What makes Newspaper Rock particularly fascinating is the apparent organization underlying the apparent chaos. While the petroglyphs might seem randomly distributed across the rock face, careful analysis reveals patterns and relationships between different images. Some figures are clearly grouped together in narrative scenes, while others seem positioned to interact with or respond to earlier images. This suggests that creating petroglyphs at Newspaper Rock involved understanding and contributing to an ongoing artistic dialogue. The technical sophistication of many images challenges assumptions about prehistoric artistic capabilities. Some petroglyphs demonstrate precise control of depth and texture, creating three-dimensional effects that bring figures to life on the two-dimensional rock surface. The artists understood how to work with the natural variations in rock varnish and surface texture to enhance their compositions, using these features as integral elements of their designs. Many of the human figures at Newspaper Rock appear to be engaged in specific activities that might document historical events or ceremonial practices. Some figures are shown hunting, others appear to be dancing or participating in rituals. A few depictions show what might be warfare or conflict, with figures carrying weapons or shields. These narrative elements suggest that part of the rock art's function was to record important events or cultural practices. Animal figures provide insights into both the natural environment and the spiritual beliefs of the artists. While many depictions clearly represent local species that would have been hunted for food or held cultural significance, Others show animals that don't match known regional fauna. Some of these mysterious creatures might represent spiritual entities or mythological beings, while others could document animals that were present in the region during earlier climatic periods. The most enigmatic images at Newspaper Rock are the geometric and abstract patterns that appear throughout the panel. These range from simple circles and lines to complex interlocking designs that require careful planning and mathematical precision to create. Some patterns appear to be astronomical in nature, possibly representing celestial events or seasonal markers. Others might be maps, territorial boundaries, or symbolic representations of abstract concepts. Recent digital analysis has revealed layers of complexity in Newspaper Rock that weren't apparent using traditional research methods. High-resolution photography, combined with computer enhancement, has identified faded images that weren't previously recognized, effectively doubling the number of known petroglyphs at the site. Many of these newly discovered images appear to be older than the more visible ones, suggesting that the earliest artists chose the finest rock surfaces for their work. The positioning of individual petroglyphs across the rock face shows evidence of deliberate planning that extended beyond single artistic sessions. Some images are positioned to take advantage of natural lighting conditions at specific times of day or seasons, creating shadow effects that enhance their visual impact. Others are placed in relationship to existing figures in ways that suggest ongoing artistic conversations across generations. Ethnographic research with contemporary Native American communities has provided some insights into the possible meanings of specific images, but has also revealed the complexity of interpreting ancient rock art. Different tribal groups sometimes offer varying explanations for the same figures, reflecting diverse cultural traditions and the evolution of symbolic meanings over time. Some images that appear straightforward to modern viewers carried completely different meanings for their original creators. The site's role as a communication hub becomes apparent when considering its location within the broader landscape. Newspaper Rock sits at the confluence of several natural travel routes that connect different ecological zones and resource areas. Ancient peoples traveling between seasonal camps, hunting grounds, or trade destinations would have naturally passed by this prominent cliff face, making it an ideal location for leaving messages or recording important information. But the petroglyphs weren't just created for practical communication. Many images show clear evidence of artistic experimentation and creative expression that goes beyond simple message leaving. Some figures demonstrate advanced understanding of composition, balance, and visual rhythm that reflects genuine artistic vision rather than mere functional recording. This suggests that Newspaper Rock served multiple purposes: a practical communication post, ceremonial site, and artistic canvas. The preservation of Newspaper Rock presents ongoing challenges that highlight the fragility of these ancient records. Natural weathering processes continuously threaten the petroglyphs, while human impact from increased visitation has accelerated deterioration in some areas. Climate change is altering precipitation and temperature patterns in ways that could affect the long-term stability of the rock face and the varnish that preserves the images. Advanced documentation efforts now underway are creating detailed digital records of every petroglyph at Newspaper Rock, preserving this information for future researchers and ensuring that the site's cultural significance can be studied even if physical deterioration continues. These documentation projects have already revealed new details about the creation techniques and chronological relationships between different images. The mystery of Newspaper Rock isn't just about what the individual images mean, but about the cultural systems that created and maintained such a complex artistic tradition over thousands of years. The site represents evidence of advanced communication networks, artistic traditions, and cultural continuity that challenge simple assumptions about prehistoric societies. It suggests that ancient peoples possessed knowledge systems and social organizations that were far more complex than often recognized. Modern visitors to Newspaper Rock often report profound emotional responses to the concentrated artistic expression preserved on the cliff face. Standing before this ancient gallery, surrounded by the voices of people who lived and died centuries ago, creates connections across time that pure archaeological analysis cannot capture. The petroglyphs become more than historical artifacts. They become windows into the human experience itself. As we contemplate the stories told in stone at Newspaper Rock, we're reminded that mystery and knowledge often coexist in archaeology. While we can identify techniques, estimate ages, and document patterns, the deeper meanings of these ancient expressions may remain forever beyond our complete understanding. Yet their power to move and inspire us proves that some forms of human communication transcend the boundaries of time and culture. The petroglyphs of Newspaper Rock represent the culmination of Utah's ancient mysteries, evidence of human creativity, intelligence, and cultural sophistication that spans thousands of years, yet remains partially incomprehensible to modern minds. They remind us that the past holds secrets we may never fully unlock, stories that will continue to challenge our assumptions about human capabilities and ancient knowledge. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.